Welcome into the voice of college football on Notre Dame. I'm your host, Patrick Brevity. That is Brendan McAlinden, esteemed, legendary writer. Give you a little bit of that. With the Irish last name. I have an Italian last name, but I look the part. The transfer portal is going crazy as per usual. How many players have entered the portal?
As of April 17th, I don't want to do my own research on it. But there's 10.7 thousand across all levels of football. Over 4,000 of which are just in the FBS. So yeah, there's a few people looking for homes.
Mm.
One of them happens to be Steve Angeli.
Yeah, one of them does happen to be Steve Angeli. Before we get to that, I did want to talk a little bit about the craziness in college football that's been going on, because obviously we're going to be talking plenty about everything for Notre Dame, but just the amount of players entering the portal is so crazy. Like, having to keep track of it is almost just mind-boggling. These sites, these, on 24/7, like, they're even behind, and granted, like, only a couple hours. It's nothing crazy, but like, there are so many players that are entering the portal, not in a bad way, right? But not all of them are going to find homes, you'd imagine, right? I mean,
and a lot of them end up having to come back, and some will have to move down a level to find work, and just the churn is real as far as these kids are and you look at the situation with Nico and his dad, which is absolutely insane. By all accounts, it looks like they took a pay cut to go to UCLA with their, he went from an established offense and an identity. And, you can say what you want about Tennessee's fit to be able to put guys into the NFL. But like Joe Milton got drafted, right? Hendon Hooker got drafted. They're getting guys drafted. It seems like something you'd kind of want to do to have some consistency, but I mean, and it is you were telling me his brother went too. His brother followed him. Was the quarterback at Arkansas, freshman?
Yeah, Matt had followed him, and it's crazy stuff. Like, truly, like, when you see some of these headlines, and great Joe Milton shout out there too. He's got a major fan base that follows him, even in the NFL. But when you see some of these headlines of these guys entering the portal, there's just always that thing, at least in the back of my mind, where I'm like, something's going on here. Like, something's going on here, and obviously it's not going to be completely transparent because it just can't possibly be. But the defensive tackle for Oklahoma, David Stone, who entered the portal and then went back to Oklahoma the next day. So Oklahoma, went to the table, got,
that's what I think it was. They
and it's like, and then the same thing with Nico's stuff, but that was completely public.
Well, and then the best part of the Nico story is that UCLA and Tennessee did quarterback swap. Like, it's like, it's like an old episode of Wife Swap. The Joey Aguilar, who was at UCLA, transferred there. He's transferring to Tennessee now. So he was from App. He was at App State, and then he went to UCLA during the winter portal. And then UCLA gets Nico, and Aguilar's like, well, all right, I'm out. And then he went just to Tennessee.
And you know what? Honestly, the portal giveth and taketh away, because at the very least, he was coming over from App State, as you mentioned, and he's like, all of a sudden he gets his starting job taken away from him. Like, the kid's a baller. Like, he's a good quarterback. Like, he can potentially play extremely well at Tennessee. And it's like, oh, like, a new guy comes in, or he could play extremely well at UCLA, and a new guy comes in, and he's like, oh, well, now I gotta go. And previously, I guess he wouldn't have been able to do that, or maybe Nico would have had to sit out a year. But all things considered, we kind of see like the give and take in the portal with that exact example. I mean, the first college football trade, essentially, I've ever seen.
Yeah, I mean, that is legitimately a college football. It's quarterback for quarterback. It's not like, where you have some guys coming from a school or another guy going to another school, different positions. This is just straight up starting quarterback swap.
Yeah. Well, obviously Notre Dame had a version of that, just a one-sided thing, but they enter CJ Carr and Kenny Minchie into the quarterback battle officially. So the first domino has fallen. Steve Angeli made a video on this earlier in the midweek, enters the transfer portal right now, projected potentially to go to Syracuse, I believe.
That's what I've heard, which would be curious, because that would line him up if he does go to Syracuse. Syracuse plays Notre Dame the next 2 years, and including this year, which is senior day. So he would get 2. potentially start at Notre Dame Stadium on Senior Day, just not for the Irish.
It's kind of crazy how life works, honestly. That's just one of those scenarios where you just kind of give it up, where it's like, you know what, this kind of fits. And it fits a little bit of the storybook and movie scripts that we've been talking about since we started this, right? Where it's like, oh, Steve Angeli has an opportunity to write something that's pretty sweet. Obviously, we're going to be kind of saying our goodbyes and just kind of reflecting too on his career and what this potentially would mean for the quarterback battle later. But he didn't die. He's just in the transfer portal, which is also something that we should recognize. But yeah, Steve Angeli, playoff hero, Notre Dame Fighting Irish through and through. But unfortunately, it just came to the point where I think it was pretty obvious that TJ Carr and Kenny Minchie were the two or the top two.
Yeah, I mean, it's Freeman said before the spring game that you can't go into fall camp with a 3-man battle. So somebody was going to have to transfer after the spring game. And by all accounts we all saw the spring game, right? And we've all heard the reports about what the big dress rehearsal scrimmage, which in some cases might be more important, at least for the coaches, than the spring game. But I mean, we all saw it. We all saw how CJ Carr played, and Kenny Minchie brings a dissimilar skill set. So he wasn't I don't think necessarily Minchie ever factored in too much with Angeli, but the fact that he pushed him enough that you couldn't have enough separation between Carr and Angeli that Angeli probably just felt, I can't take this into the fall. And if he gets a chance to start at Syracuse, I mean, Kyle McCord went to Syracuse last year, and all he did was break Syracuse passing records, right? He was the best passer in the ACC. So it's an offense that can click, and it can work for guys who were cast off for something new. Which, if that's Syracuse's model and it's working for them, I mean, there's worse. I mean, when you're in the ACC, there's worse ways to go.
Hey, that was Notre Dame's model for 2 years.
It sure was.
And it's Miami's model now. And it's okay. Like, if you're a program that's going to take in a couple of transfer QBs as you're kind of getting your depth at that position, or you're recruiting at that position in the right place. I do think that the Kyle McCord thing does make him look at it and say, hey, yeah, I can come in and I can play well, and I can do this for this program and potentially elevate my status in college football. And you literally never know. I mean, we've seen one season turn around so many players. If he has a year like Kyle McCord, we're looking at Steve Angeli in a completely different light. And this was somebody who also wasn't a slouch as far as recruiting. I mean, obviously CJ Carr and Kenny Minchie, you put them on a bit of a pedestal. Not you specifically, but
just the royal you. Yeah.
And it's like, so he gets like the short end of the stick when we're talking about that, as far as the Notre Dame quarterback depth in the room is concerned. But, he's no slouch either. And he certainly has talent. It was just not seeing that upper echelon, or that maybe it factor that we were hoping to see from somebody who was an upperclassman. Yeah, I like Syracuse. And there's other schools too that have been projected. I've kind of trying to remember exactly who I said in the video were projected. Things are moving so quickly. I don't know if any of those schools are even in it now. But
part of the problem is he doesn't have a spring. He's the best quarterback on the market, though. He is the best quarterback on the market for a team post spring that needs a quarterback or has a murky quarterback situation. So he's definitely attractive as far as that goes. He started a bowl game, but he also came in spots. He was great. And then he had the clutch drive against Penn State, but I don't know, man. It's a timing thing, I think, and that's what I look for in quarterbacks. Is it's like timing, and you can't take the kind of sacks that he did. Like, even on that, he was sacked twice on that drive against Penn State. There was the near disaster sack fumble, and then the drive ended with a sack and then a field goal. So just his timing doesn't seem. I don't like that he didn't really figure out that you need to step up into the pocket, and didn't feel the pressure or have the timing of when to release it or just get rid of a ball. And if you're a coaching staff, and especially Gino Guidugli, it probably drove him nuts. Because
I'm glad that you brought up like that that drive, or well, I'll bring up the drive, but also like the fact that just him holding the ball too long, just that driving the coaching staff nuts. On that drive against Penn State, maybe we look at it a lot differently if that fumble's recovered
Oh yeah,
by Penn
the
State,
whole game, the whole
or
game
we
changes.
definitely
Yeah.
will. Yeah, the whole game changes, the whole season changes, but it wasn't. So I'm not going to play too much into
No.
hypotheticals there, but still at the same time, like that was a big concern, and just not being able to clean up some of that stuff at least through the spring is really unfortunate. But yeah, you're right. Like he doesn't now benefit from having a spring. It's kind of amazing when you look at some of these transfers that there are still a lot of guys that do try in the spring to stay with their program, with their school. And I think that is commendable, because at the same time, when we open the show where we're talking about some of the players that bolt, or that go into the portal and then come back the next day, there are players like Steve Angeli who do spend their time with the program and they compete. He went in and competed, and they were saying it was going to be a fair quarterback competition. He wasn't going to get any sort of leg up being the older guy and having the, even the limited amount of experience, but more experience that he had. So that is commendable in its own right. Also, while you were talking, I did try to look at some of the predictions that were going on. And right now for 24/7 Sports, all 3 transfer predictions have him going to Syracuse.
Going to Syracuse. Yeah, Steve Whitfong put a crystal ball in for him. So this would not be, if he does go to Syracuse, it would not be the first time a former Notre Dame quarterback has come back to South Bend for Senior Day. Do you know the other 2 that just come to mind in recent memory?
Gosh. That come to mind in recent memory?
And their record, the returners, is 1-1, and not all of them played.
As a start, okay, yeah, not all of them played, so one of them probably wasn't a starter. Buckner? No. Like not even that wouldn't make much sense.
There's no way you'll get, but there's one I think you might.
Oh man, I don't know. I mean, not even like a Wimbush, or like not even Drew Pine. I honestly don't know. I'm probably blanking on the name. They started.
There was
Phil. Yeah. Okay.
Phil came back for Senior Day. He didn't play because he was hurt. It was on the sidelines wearing a jacket, looking very sad. I think I have a funny. I took a picture of him looking very sad after the game. I was down on the field in the end zone. I took a picture of him looking real sad, wearing his jacket all bundled up, because that was a snow globe game. And then the other one came back and beat us was Zach Frazier, UConn quarterback, but he was Charlie Weiss's in 2007's pick to run the option to open the season. And then he transferred to UConn and ended up beating Notre Dame on Senior Day. And that's the infamous marshmallow game that Manti Te'o committed at. No, that was Syracuse. But yeah.
Yeah, definitely would not have been able to get that one. I'm mad at myself for the Phil Jerkovich one. I was trying to go through some of the guys that transferred over the years, and I was just thinking too recent. I guess the Jerkovich stuff is kind of now been a few years ago. It seems maybe like what was that, 22? Maybe not that far.
Yeah, I think it was no. I mean, I was at the game. I think it was the 2022 season.
Oh yeah, well. Any final words maybe on Steve Angeli?
No, I mean, I love the kid. He did get his degree. It's phenomenal. I wish him all of the luck in all of the games that he plays, except for games against Notre Dame. He will always have the drive against Penn State. It was they didn't have anything going offensively, and sacks aside, it was the first sign of life from the offense in the whole game. And he sort of sparked that. And I don't think they make it to the title game if he doesn't do that. And for all the foibles and maybe shortcomings there, you got to tip your cap to a guy like that comes in that spot. And it didn't work out for him at Notre Dame, but I mean, he's forever going to be a part of Notre Dame lore, which is pretty stinking cool. So thank you, Steve Angeli. Best of luck, moving forward. But I like where we're at. I think Marcus Freeman definitely in this instance could have taken the easy route and just simply Miller Mossed it, stuck with the the guy with experience and who'd been there the longest. But I think Marcus Freeman took a chance and wanted to be great, not good. Because I think the safe way would have been just roll into Miami and Texas A&M with Steve Angeli. And then, if things started to maybe ease one of the other two in, but Freeman said, nope, that's not how that's not how we're going to do this. We're going to take a risk and we're going to go big. And I like that. I like the risk taking in that aspect, because it's not settling for good. It's trying to strive to be great.
And you can't tell the 2024-25 season story without Steve Angeli. So I think his legacy at Notre Dame, while it may feel unfinished to him, maybe personally, I'm just assuming, is certainly there. It is, I mean, obviously not to the extent that he'd want, but his impact, at least on this past season, was definitely heard or felt.
He in 10 years, 10, 15 years will be a phenomenal Notre Dame trivia question answer. Phenomenal Notre Dame trivia question answer. In like 10 years.
Oh, he definitely will be.
For sure.
That for sure. Yeah, that's actually a great point. But, we talked a lot about the transfer portal. Notre Dame did get hit with a couple of guys that ended up leaving. Namely would be Kennedy Urlacher, transfers. He's out, goes to USC, lost a kicker, lost a long snapper. But I think we're probably going to focus
Zach Yoakum.
Zach Yoakum. And we'll focus on those two guys here. We'll start with Kennedy Urlacher. Kind of a tough depth loss, but Notre Dame hasn't really felt that starter. It's been the big news has been Steve Angeli, which is still pretty good, I think, for this Notre Dame team in this spring portal window. But yeah, Kennedy Urlacher to USC.
So it's kind of funny with Kennedy Urlacher is and this just speaks to the depth of the program and the health of the program. And everyone's regurgitated this 100 times, and it can't be regurgitated enough that this is the kind of transfer that a decade ago would have been a killer to this program. Losing someone like Kennedy Urlacher would have been a killer. But losing Kennedy Urlacher now is you're losing a guy who's probably on the 3 deep. Maybe your fourth safety rotated in, but probably more likely your 5th or 6th. So it's not, and it's the recruiting behind him and over him and around him. And that's how it all goes. And this is what healthy programs do. And when you see, previous years, this is the kind of stuff that would happen to Alabama and Georgia. And you would see these extremely talented players getting caught in these log jams and transferring out and then just getting replaced with better players or more players. And it's just, this is the reality of it. You can't keep a 5, 6 safeties of that. The freshmen are going to have to be that. And that's just the way that it is if you're not cracking the 2 deep as a sophomore or junior, the guys coming up behind you, they're already knocking on the door, and you just move on. So these depth charts now are going to be filled with a lot more freshmen than they previously were. There's not, for most programs in America, you got to make your move early.
Yeah, I'm actually really happy that you made that point with the transfer portal too. It kind of, I think where this sticks with me is just the former recruiting director going to USC, poaching, a guy who did play in all the games last year, was mainly special teams, but had 12 tackles. I believe he also had a fumble recovery, during the season and a pass breakup. I felt like he could have been something next year even. I'm certainly, there wasn't really very many defensive packages where we would have seen him, as you mentioned at the start, but I definitely think that he would have been an impact player over the next couple of years. So that's what really stinks to me. And, him going to USC just is kind of a,
that's the part that stinks, is you can't go to Michigan, you can't go to USC. Anywhere else you go is fine. It's whatever. But you can't go to Michigan and you can't go to USC. And he went to USC. And Notre Dame took a USC player, right? And I think if you wanted to look at it, they took Elijah Hughes as a D tackle. And if you're asking me if I would rather have Elijah Hughes or Kennedy or Lark, I'd say I'd rather have Elijah Hughes. I mean, safeties, the Notre Dame is stacked in
Yeah.
their safety room. They have an established two deep that I feel really good about, and he wasn't going to be a part of that. But interior defensive linemen, that's you got to have a rotation, and we don't know what Onye is going to look like, and the health of the guys is going to be a key because both Mills and Cross went down at varying points during the last year. It's just it's a unicorn position, that interior. So the more guys you can stack there, the better. So if we want to go circle back to the trade that is Nico or the App State kid, if this was a trade, I think Notre Dame came out on top of this trade. The name Urlacher is pretty impressive, but he still was, I think he was like a 3-star kid. So it's not like they're losing 5-star talent on that back end.
Yeah, I mean that's true too. I think that the name just isn't, very similar to like a CJ Carr situation is always gonna, have some sort of carry. But yeah. I mean, I'm just more so it's just the poaching of the players. It's like, but it's a common thing in the transfer portal. It's a common thing in college football. It makes sense. He's going to go to where maybe he feels like he's most could be best utilized, but also just like most appreciated and where he can trust. When you make these decisions over a couple of days, obviously there's probably a little bit of tampering, but when still it's a quick decision. You have to make it, and I see why he would want to go there, but just also
I'm sure Chad Bowden had his cell phone in his contact list, his number in his contact list as well, so that probably didn't hurt. Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at USC's depth chart at the safety position, and they have a super senior, a redshirt senior transfer, and Bishop Fitzgerald, and another redshirt junior transfer at the free safety spot. So, I mean, and then they got a freshman in the 3 deep. So all he's got to do is, he could crack the 2 deep at USC, and he could definitely be starting by next year. He would not be starting at Notre Dame next year, is the reality of the situation. So.
And that's why people enter the portal. That makes sense. All right, so Zach Yoakum, place kicker, moves on. I don't believe he's found a new home just yet. Have you seen anything on that?
I haven't seen that. I mean, kickers, they'll get through fall. He'll probably get picked up at some point during fall camp, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
you would imagine.
Mostly a kickoff specialist. Did kick a bunch of extra points. But doesn't have sterling field goal statistics. I think it was sub 50%. I can pull his stats real quick.
Yeah, I think it was 40%. He missed a couple from 30 to 39, and then one from 40 to 49.
Yeah, that's and the thing about that position now, anyway. Notre Dame's got Noah Burnett, transfer from North Carolina. And next year they're gonna pull in another transfer. Like, why would you sign a kicker? Like, why would you sign a kicker? Just get somebody who has experience. Like, you don't want someone coming out, you're playing in Coral Gables week 1 on a Sunday night, and you don't want a kid kicking his first real field goal at night on the road on a Sunday. Like, give me a break. No, Notre Dame probably will never sign another kicker in the entirety of Marcus Freeman's tenure here. Like, what's the point? You bring in somebody who has experience kicking and who's done it before, and then you don't want growing pains with your kicker. Like, the one thing you cannot have is a kicker who doesn't make field goals or rattled
or
in
an injured
big
kicker.
Yeah, or an injured kicker. But
that would suck too. It's just always interesting. I made a video too on this channel about the kicking situation. Like, this was at the very kind of beginning of spring. So it's interesting to see Yoakum enter the transfer portal after all of this goes down. But it's like kind of the wild, wild west for kickers in a sense, because I know a lot of people feel the same way as you do, where you're not signing a kicker straight out of high school, just simply because you have too many big games where you need to trust a guy and you need him to knock down some field goals, and you don't want to take that risk. And it makes sense. But I'm surprised for the fall designation. I mean, I guess I'd imagine somebody might end up picking him up, or he might end up going somewhere, maybe even prior to that. But I admittedly, I've only really known that it is just kind of crazy, just like a crazy world where it just feels like it's slim. It's not slim pickings, but it's tough for some of the kickers to find homes in general too. So
Yeah, if you don't get that job early on, it's probably hard to find yourself latched in until you get to fall camp, and then they start doing kicking drills because there's not really a premium I'm looking for it now. It's like it's not like you need to coach them up, right? I mean,
yeah.
how much time are you going to dedicate to finding your kicker now? I mean, what does it matter if you sign them now or during the next window? It's just
Not often do you have a situation. You're right. It makes sense. Like often do you have a situation where they need to be adjusted to the specific style that maybe a team runs their punts or their kickoffs. I believe there was there was a situation that happened in Nebraska where the punter transferred in, and then they went with some sort of kicking style away from the way that he was accustomed to, and so then he transferred out. So you see it sometimes, but yeah, I know, right? Of course, there's always one example for something
oh yeah,
wild.
something ridiculous.
Yeah,
Yeah,
for something
I
ridiculous.
love it. And I think the thing that I love the most about college football, more so than the NFL or maybe any sport, and what makes it so much fun. And you wondered if the corporatization and the sort of movement to this expanded playoff and the transfer portal and all of this, and we're looking at like the death of amateurism, whatever. It's still hilariously ridiculous. And that's what I love about it is that there's still you still have something like the quarterback swap at Tennessee and UCLA, and you still have like punters transferring out after they change their punt. Like this is ridiculous, and I love it. I love the utter absurdity of it because it's just you look at where else does this happen but college football, and I love that. It's just delightful.
And then Matt Rule getting up on a press conference and explaining like how great of a punter he was, how great of a person he was, stand up dude, and was just like, "This is what happened. This is why it happened, and this is where we're going after this." It does get to be, it's like, is this like a sketch? Is this some sort of TV
This is
show? Like you almost
this
can't
is a
even write this.
punter. Yeah,
Yeah, it's
this
the
is a
punter,
punter. What are you doing?
but you know, hey, it happens. All right, we'll move to the question that
Mhm.
will be burning in Notre Dame
Oof.
fans for the next what, 5-ish, maybe actually less than 5, probably 4 months now,
Uh,
or
yeah.
3.5.
I mean, it probably will carry on into the season for some.
Ooh, that would be probably the worst case scenario almost. Then I'm looking at it from both ways, where it's like the starting quarterback's not playing well, or it was such a close battle in the spring. We got two really good guys, but regardless, CJ Carr and Kenny Minchie are the last two quarterbacks left standing from the three-man battle over the spring. Do you have a lean on who you would rather see or who you think will win?
Um, so I don't necessarily have a lean, and maybe I do. But do you want to do a fun exercise with me on it? How about each one of us take a quarterback and just sort of make a general case for why you think that should be the starter, and I'll let you have
Okay.
your pick between the two, and we'll kind of look at it as far as like make your case. We don't have any game film to go off of. We have recruiting rankings, which at this point in the game aren't necessarily that important. But make your case for one of the two quarterbacks. I'll let you pick.
My personal pick would be CJ Carr. And I'll start with the case. And this is zero disrespect to Kenny Minchie because I think he is the truth. I saw that spring game on Peacock, and I enjoyed it thoroughly. The backflip, the rushing ability, there was something there with Kenny Minchie that I think either way it's good. But with CJ Carr, I feel like he solved some issues for Notre Dame that a lot of quarterbacks, even in the last handful of years, haven't been able to do. I think it comes down to arm talent, ability, and just simply his confidence. Maybe the confidence comes from the pedigree, the family, the, you know, being in football all of his life. I'm sure Kenny Minchie's played football all of his life too, but maybe it comes from that. But what I do know is that his arm talent is next level. And we have seen that he had some amazing throws in the spring game. And I think despite the interception, despite the wanting to throw it in over the middle after the pocket is collapsing on him, he has the ability to make every single throw across the field. And when we were getting Sam Hartman and getting Riley Leonard in the transfer portal, we thought we were getting that from them. I think CJ Carr is the next man up to potentially fulfill that. And I would even argue that his actual ability to throw the football, and you mentioned, recruiting doesn't matter, but just simply coming into college, spending a couple of years behind those transfer QBs has given him that ability to grow. And he's probably just about as natural of a thrower as those guys, if not even better. And I think for Notre Dame, that is something that they desperately need. If you want to take the passing game, just separate it from the rushing QB aspect that we saw last year with Riley Leonard. Your guy is CJ Carr, if that's what you really want. If we're gonna invest in Jadarian Price and Jeremiah Love as those two backs in the backfield, and probably have we definitely have the best returning backfield in the nation. So you don't need your quarterback to be running. What do you need? You need help as far as the tight ends. They seem to be healthy. And who is going to be stepping up as far as that big play wide receiver? Well, if you give them CJ Carr, I think you give them the best chance to succeed. So that's why when I look at it as far as arm talent, confidence, ability to level this team up and kind of right some of the, maybe not wrongs, but the, inadequacies of the last couple of quarterbacks that have come in, despite the expectations, I think, CJ Carr is the answer for that.
I mean, secretly, my hope is that CJ Carr wins for a lot of the reasons that you laid out. Because I do think that if that top tier of talent that he might have is unlocked, it would mean Notre Dame has a quarterback that potentially could be drafted in the first round of the NFL draft. Right? I mean, that's the hope with somebody of CJ Carr's pedigree. CJ Carr played football like 25 minutes. He played in Saline, which is in our conference here, the SEC, comically enough. It's not a very good football conference. I don't think he had any real Division I players on his team, and that was something that they talked about. I think the tight end might have had some offers. I don't know off the top of my head, but football in this Washtenaw County area that we live in, it's all centered around the Ann Arbor schools. All stink. Pioneer stinks. Huron stinks. Skyline stinks. They don't put anybody into Division I college football. Michigan gets nothing from them. The only one of note I can really think of is Dalen Hayes, who went to Skyline, which is the worst of the three, but he was only here for his senior year. He's originally from California, I think. So I don't really count him. There's not a lot of talent. He didn't play a lot of talent. He didn't have a lot of talent with him. I find that to be kind of an interesting component of him, that it's a pretty big step up. So that's just my only counterpoint is he hasn't seen talent like this. My case for Kenny Minchie, though, I like his timing, and I think that that's an important thing, especially for a young quarterback early on. He, by accounts, he does like to run, but he likes to scramble as well. And I don't think that the spring game was a great venue for him to display his full depth of talent, because, where some quarterbacks, you can just get tapped, or you're not thinking about moving in the same way, because a touch can bring you down. So you can't scramble the same way that you want to. Maybe not even just to run, but to spin out of something. You can't do that because you know that a touch brings you down when you're wearing the green jersey. He adds a dynamic element to the offense that I think Denbrock wants in a quarterback, which is a true dual threat. Not to say that Carr doesn't have some ability to scoot, but I think Kenny Minchie's a little bit different, and he's not the same runner as Riley Leonard, which was more of a stand up and pound. He's more of a water bug kind of runner. He's significant. I think he's like, what is he, 6'2"? They list him at, but he's probably, if they list him at 6'2", he's probably 6'1". He's like 205 pounds. So you'd worry about him getting hit. But he gives that different dynamic that I think unlocks a good amount of the Denbrock playbook that he has in there. So I like that about him. I also like the fact that, you know, of the players that I like, guys that have a chip. And for all of the three, the one who had the biggest chip on his shoulder was Kenny Minchie, because I wrote him off. You wrote him off. Everybody wrote him off coming into this spring battle. And there were times where reports were that he was the leader in the clubhouse with it. And he's got that chip where people in the media and the fans kind of just wrote him off, and they were like, when's Carr coming up? And I think that's a powerful tool that a lot of people, I mean, Mark D'Antonio for years made a Spartan program up in East Lansing out of finding guys that had a chip, just something to prove. And you see that all the time with guys when they get drafted in the NFL, and they're like, I'm going to remember everyone that didn't draft me. And that chip is sometimes something that gives you a little bit of an edge. So not only a skill set, you know, having that dual threat, but also being a pretty accomplished passer. I like that. I like that, especially for a young quarterback, because if the arm isn't working, you can always fall back on the legs. So that's my sort of case for Kenny Minchie. If either one starts against Miami, I'm going to be pretty happy. I don't think that the wrong decision can be made. And I think that, you know, the more I've thought about it, whoever starts is who I want to see finish. I think I don't want to go in there with like a, you know, Zaire Kaiser, you know, Texas game debacle where they're like splitting snaps and like scripted series. I don't want to see a red zone quarterback. I think red zone people chasing that high of Chris Leak and Tim Tebow need to just stop. You know, the belldozer didn't work. This concept that you can have a red zone quarterback is absurd, especially for a young quarterback. Like, hey, young quarterback, we're pulling you into the game and bringing somebody off the bench cold. Like, I don't think that serves anyone well. Maybe have a few packages in there and pull them out in spots. But if whoever wins the job, I hope they decide that it's outright, because I don't want to see split QB time. I don't want to see weird red zone packages. Just pick a winner, and then if they get hurt, you know, you can slide to them, or if they struggle, slide to them. But whoever has it needs to feel like they have a leash, and it's not, you know, taunt.
Yeah, I really would hope going into the season that quarterback, whoever it is going to be the starter for the rest of the year. We were talking a little bit, and it was, I forgot if we said this before or during, but yeah, like there's not. I think there would be a really, really bad scenario if we went into the season and we felt like both of the guys should play, because then that just means that one didn't win it just outwardly. And that scares me a little bit, because that's, like you said, it's just not a sustainable product unless you have two all-time great college football quarterbacks, you know. And it's like, it's not something that I would want to see, nor do I think something that really fits, you know. Like you said, Kenny Minchie, his running ability is just different, and I think it would be better suited for him to actually be out there for the full drive because of his scrambling ability and everything like that. You're not going to have him in the red zone where he's just like trying to bulldoze people like Cam Newton.
That's not his game.
Leonard. Yeah,
it's not his game. He's not the runner like that. I do want to, like, you know, it's a good point. I mean, we have seen the blue gold game, and then there was limited media availability for the press. So a lot of the reports come through state media. And then, you know, the insiders that we have inside the Goog, you know, Kenny Minchie was a thing before the blue gold game. Like Kenny Minchie, after that scrimmage that was available for the media, that was legitimately a thing. Like Kenny Minchie balled out and through a lot of back channeling, it was made known that he might have had the best spring of the three quarterbacks, maybe. But he definitely had a spring that no one saw coming. So it is true. Um, you know, most of what we were able to see is limited to the blue and gold game, other than some specific practice reports and what's leaked out to the media, for public consumption or otherwise. But sometimes, with those reports where we'll hear something and you don't know if what you're hearing is to be put out there in order to push a narrative or to push a player as well. Because who's leaking that, and who's giving that information, and is that information being leaked for a specific purpose or what? So yeah, I mean, we mostly have the blue gold game to go off of, but if it was solely the blue gold game, I don't think that there would be as much if there wasn't already smoke outside of it, because it wasn't a demonstratively impressive performance, but coupled with what we've heard leading up to the game, I think that it bears mentioning. I don't think that I think and I hope that it is CJ Carr season. It's what I want because it's the best possible scenario. But if it's Kenny Minchie, that would speak to something as well, because then he beat out Angeli and then he beat out CJ Carr. And what does that say about Kenny Minchie? And that goes to my whole spiel about him having a chip. And that's something sometimes, and it's not like he was an untalented kid. We're not talking about a 3-star Ian Book here, who, the winningest all-time Notre Dame quarterback, not to besmirch him, but we're not talking about a 3-star here. I mean, Kenny Minchie in his own right is a 4-star quarterback and a higher rated 4-star than Angeli was. So,
Yeah, no, 100%. If we go into this season with Minchie as the starter, he no doubt obviously earned it, but in a sense, like, was kind of working from behind, and that just should instill so much confidence into the fan base to be like, yeah, like, he has to have it. He has to have something, like, and he'll show it at some point whenever he's starting. I just think it's really important, like you mentioned, to understand perspective. Obviously, haven't been able to see everything that's gone on, and the blue gold spring game was just like the big thing of the spring that we from the outside looking in, we're able to see. And we understand, like, that we're not going to know 100% about everything as far as who's going to win this battle and what exactly has been said, but we do know that these two guys played extremely well, and we, our eyes don't deceive us about the spring game, either too, at the same point. I think if Minchie were to be the starter, obviously that would suck, because I'd imagine CJ Carr would be in the transfer portal fairly soon, if not after the latest after the season. But Kenny Minchie would be a person that I would trust. That chip on his shoulder. I like that you mentioned it.
Yeah, I mean, and Fravel in the comments, I mean, you're right. I mean, CJ Carr was the best quarterback in the last 2 spring games, but what does that say if Kenny Minchie were to beat him out? And I just think that when you look at this quarterback battle and the way that it is, and the fact that both of them were able to displace Angeli, I don't think that you can make a wrong decision. If Minchie beats out Carr, it is because Minchie is the better quarterback, and the quarterback that they think is going to help Notre Dame win a national title. Because it's not about winning football games anymore. It is about winning national titles. And so the coaching staff, by eschewing, Angeli, has signified we are in this to win a national title, and which quarterback can best get that job done. And if it's CJ Carr, that is fantastic. But if it's Kenny Minchie, that is also fantastic. So I think that this is a good problem to have. This is the kind of problem that good programs have. And I think that Notre Dame is in a spot that we haven't seen them since the early 90s, where they're in a position where you have no bad choice, right? Like we talked about it with the transfer portal. Like when guys leave, we absorb. It's because we have so much talent accumulated. This is every year going forward for the foreseeable future. We're going to say this is the most talented Notre Dame team that we have seen. Next year, same time, we're going to be on this channel and we will be saying this is the most talented Notre Dame team we will see. The next year, this is the most talented Notre Dame team that we have seen, because Marcus Freeman has elevated the recruiting and elevated the program and the player development, so that as long as Marcus Freeman is here, it is only an upwards trajectory. And the fact that he was able to get a national title berth out of last year's squad is ridiculous, and it's extremely exciting to look forward to the future.
Whoever gives us the best chance to win, that'll definitely be the player that ends up getting that starting job. All right, well, you brought this topic up when we were first getting going, and it was the Jeremiah Love Heisman case.
Oh yeah.
If this was before last year, I would have told you I don't know if I'll ever see another running back win this award. You know, I think it was from Ashton Genty. Before that, it was Derrick Henry all the way back in like 2015.
Yeah.
So,
and, Reggie Bush.
Reggie Bush. Yeah. So at that point, you had like Mark Ingram sprinkled in there too. So it's like, I didn't know if a running back would get the votes, would get the notoriety. But with Jeremiah Love coming back, having rushed for almost like, I think it was over 1,200 yards last season. I think that he's got a pretty decent case for it. But there's some things that would have to happen, or he rushed for almost 1,200 yards. He was at 1125. So
yeah, and then he got 15 games to do it, but he had severely limited workload, which, I mean, it worked out well for him, until the end when he got injured. But yeah, you mentioned the running. I don't think the running back thing impacts me a whole lot, because last year they just gave a Heisman away. Like last season, let's just be honest. What was your favorite Travis Hunter moment on his 8-5 football team? Like, what was his Heisman moment? What was your favorite thing that Travis Hunter did last year on his 8-win football team?
Yeah, right. I don't know.
They couldn't
pick that was supposed to be.
They couldn't give the Heisman away last year, right? And people bring up, and Pete Sampson had his mailbag in the Athletic in today, and he talked about it and why he didn't think Jeremiah Love, because he won't be able to get the production for it. And he pointed to Ashton Genty and his production, and he was only able to finish second place. And it's like, Ashton Genty ran for 2,600 yards, right? Yeah. How many Boise State football games do you think that the average Heisman voter watched last year?
Especially in the South.
Too, like they watched the voting. Maybe they watched the Oregon game. That was a late kick. Maybe they watched it, and where he went for 192, and that's how he got himself on some radars. But then it's like, you're playing for Boise State, so you're already in the G5, which is a tough slot. It's, tough sled. How many G5 players have won a Heisman? And then the only thing he had going for him was stat accumulation. It was just like, how much stat could he accumulate in games? What was his Heisman moment? Because that's what it really boils down to for a lot of this stuff. It's like, who has that signature Heisman moment, or that highlight worthy, we're going to repost that clip 100 times, and that's the Heisman campaign. And I think that for when I look at a Jeremiah Love, who he's the PFF college football's #1 ranked returning player. He might be the best running back to ever play for Notre Dame talent-wise, when all said and done. The things that he does is so incredibly special. It's Saquon Barkley-esque. And it's fitting. He's got when you talk about his production and his workload, and we were talking about this before. Juwan Sider, the new running backs coach, who was the running backs coach at Penn State, he likes to keep a tight room. So while Dalen liked to rotate in and get 4, 5, 6 guys the ball, Sider does like 3, and it's 2 and then a little bit of a third, and that's why Slade, that's why you feel better about this, is because he's gonna get more of a workload. He has the Notre Dame brand, which Genty did not have. People will watch his games. His game against Miami, I think, is going to be very important in setting a runway for a Heisman campaign, because the eyes of the nation will be on you in that primetime slot on a Sunday night. So, he will have a marquee game where he can sort of put his name out there. And then what does Jeremiah Love do that America loves? He hurdles people.
Yeah.
He hurdles people.
Those.
He jumps over people. So if you're putting together a Heisman campaign and you need to start it off against a Miami team that was, you might know better than I, but there were at least half the games, they had over 20 missed tackles, right? Last year.
Oh, the defense was horrendous last year for Miami.
And you got a new DC.
Yep.
Ton of turnover. I'm not sure if you can figure out, I don't think game 1 tackling is going to be demonstratively improved. So for a guy that likes to hurdle and break tackles, it seems like a good spot to sort of plant your stake and get your name in for the Heisman. It helps to get your name out there early, have highlight worthy clips, which he does. And then, oh, by the way, here are your current Heisman odds, and tell me which one of these guys you think is your favorite. So right now, the odds on favorite is it's plus 800, Garrett Nussmeier at LSU and Arch Manning at Texas. Texas is replacing their receivers, and their offensive line has significant turnover. It's going to be some tough sledding for Arch, but he has a name, which helps certainly. After Arch, you get Cade Klubnik at Clemson at plus 1,000, Jeremiah Smith at Ohio State at 1,200, which I think he's probably the best receiver in America, but they're breaking in a new quarterback for him, which he's dependent on someone else to get him the ball, which is always hard. Then you have Julian Sayin, his quarterback, at plus 1,300. What's your favorite Julian Sayin snap and pass? Dante Moore at Oregon at 1,600. Sure. Lenore Sellers, which is, okay, I like that one, 1,600. DJ Lagway at Florida, plus 1,600. Drew Aller at Penn State, get out of here. No, not even entertaining that at 1,600. And then Carson Beck at 2,500 at Miami. Which one of those guys is your favorite to win the Heisman?
Oh man, shoot, the Lenore Sellers one, maybe just for the value, just
for the value,
for looking at it from that perspective.
It put up rushing numbers, but what are they going to win? 8 games, 9 games?
I don't know how many games South Carolina can win. Arch Manning, it's a very interesting case with the name and everything being at Texas. If he could potentially play well, but I got to be honest, I do agree with what you're saying here. If Jeremiah Love can pounce on Miami, because I think if you're running back, you got to start week 1. The Heisman candidacy does start in week 1 in general too, but you aren't afforded the luxuries as maybe some of those quarterbacks that you mentioned on the list. Garrett Nussmeier, I don't know. It's just, I don't know if any of those teams are going to have the same amount of success.
That's a big part of it too. And last year they were just begging for someone, because you had a gadget player win the Heisman, and the next player that finished second in the Heisman was a group of 5 guy. There was no one there. There was no one there to win that Heisman. They were just begging for someone to give it to, and no one was willing to step up. And you look at this season as well, and I don't see it being any differently. I look, because you always got to look at the quarterbacks and you go, all right, well, which quarterback's coming into this season is going to be the quarterback. And I don't, Clay Klubnik's not that guy. Get out of here. I've watched him for 3 years. No, absolutely not. Garrett Nussmeier is not that guy. And maybe Arch Manning, but Julian's saying, if you want to give, why not put CJ Carr on there? If you're putting, like Dante Moore, he has more, he's thrown more pick sixes than I think he's thrown actual touchdowns in his college football career. Okay. Well, fine. DJ Lagway at Florida, like, let's see if they can get to a bowl game before you start putting them on Heisman odds. It's just, and then Drew Aller is the ultimate chump. Like, you can get out of here with that. He will never do anything ever of any substance. Like, Drew Aller is a jag. So Carson Beck could be a guy, but he's got to beat Notre Dame if he wants to win that Heisman. That's the reality. Like, if Carson Beck beats Notre Dame week 1, then you can talk about a Carson Beck Heisman campaign. And then we're not even talking about Jeremiah Love anyway, because he didn't do what he needed to do. But if Jeremiah Love puts up numbers against a team that can't tackle in a primetime spot, and by the way, he does it with like a hurdle or something ridiculous, which he's capable of doing at any time. Yeah, sure. I mean, he should absolutely be there. Is probably the highest odds non-quarterback, and I don't like any of the quarterbacks that are there, so I kind of like his Heisman campaign.
I mean, if he has 1,600 yards, and
that's the number.
Yeah, and Price is like, he's there contributing, but it just feels like this offense runs through Love. And I mean, at certain points, certainly felt like that last year, but it just maybe to a different level. And this team does have the same amount of success. I almost hate to even say oh, Love needs the rest of his team to just not play well, but we would be looking at a situation where it would be in spite potentially of the quarterback play, the receivers. Obviously the offensive line would deserve, a round of applause if Love were to be a finalist, but I definitely think he can be a finalist. Even with all of that, but to win it might be a little tough, just because of I don't know if there's a bias against running backs for this award, but I just think there's maybe a general bias towards quarterbacks. So that's when you see the betting odds and seeing those QBs be ranked so high despite maybe not doing much. And there are shots in the dark, and it is in April. But if Love were to get 1,600 yards and maybe the quarterback play is still pretty good, maybe it's where it was last year, and this Notre Dame team is rolling, they're winning. They don't have that loss too. I do think a loss such as the one against NIU last season would really hurt the case. They don't have that, and then maybe they do go 12-0. He should definitely be a finalist in New York. And I think there's going to be some buzz brewing as the season gets closer, where it's hey, look, here are the positional players that are most likely to get an invite.
They're not going to need him to run for 2,300. And I don't think that in today's day, I think that when Alshon Jeffrey is gearing up for a Heisman campaign, he needs to put up absurd numbers, right? Because that's the only way that you need to run 37 times for 226 yards against Oregon State if you want to be in the discussion for a Heisman. If you're Ashton Jeanty, if you're Jeremiah Love, you can run it 8 times for 95 yards and you're good, as long as that Miami game, that Texas A&M game, the USC game, if in the spots where you need to have your spots and you have the moment, because everything now is a snippet. It's a clip. And if you can put together these hurdles and you can make it their thing, and if Notre Dame's media department, which killed it last year with their videos, I certainly think that they can help in that aspect as well. And I think that he has a lot of early season buzz as being the best running back coming back. I think that it's a real thing. And I think that it needs to be discussed. And I think that if he wants to win a Heisman, the word needs to be put out that this is a real thing and that it needs to be discussed, because I think that a large part of the Notre Dame media is there's an apprehension to do that kind of stuff. But hey, stump for your guys. Nobody else is going to do it for you. The conference isn't going to do it for you because you don't have a conference. So the media needs to stump for your guys and if you have a chance to preach the good word of Jeremiah Love, preach the good word of Jeremiah Love. He absolutely should be a Heisman contender, and we should take this seriously, and we should will it into existence.
The Heisman campaign is a real thing.
Yeah.
That's what it is. You need to be able to prop the player up. Every player is going to have a storyline, a paragraph about them that you can potentially sum up their season, whether that's right or wrong. And that is what potentially pushes them through everything, the media scrutiny and the media love into the Heisman talk and all the way to New York. And for Jeremiah Love, like it's going to take that. And it's nice too because I think a lot more people like Notre Dame, and I think if to have a Heisman contender, that makes it a lot easier.
Significantly easier.
To like Notre Dame, but also if you like Notre Dame in general, it certainly helps out Jeremiah Love.
Josh Adams could have had a Heisman campaign in 2017, and it should have been a Heisman campaign for Quentin Nelson. But they started it so late. The 33 trucking. By the time they had the hats and all that, and it came out, it was already too late. And you have to, if you want to start these campaigns, you got to start them now. And it's no surprise that Travis Hunter won a Heisman. I mean, who's a better salesman than Deion Sanders?
No,
right?
Nobody,
It's been sold for the last 2 years. And so the name Travis Hunter is right there. So you need to do the same thing with Jeremiah Love, is that when people think about Notre Dame football, they need to think about Jeremiah Love. And when they think about who's the best running back in America, it needs to be Jeremiah Love. Here's the clips. Watch him jump over people. This is amazing. Get excited about it. Give him the Heisman. So we need to do our best to just make sure that it's part of the national conversation, because a lot of times Notre Dame can get sort of caught in the wash because they don't have a conference. So they don't have the sort of outside people stumping for them as well. They don't have the conference shills. They have a wonderful national following and a national base, but they don't have conference shills that help sort of pump them up, outside of their own. Mm-hmm. So we got to be extra vigilant with that.
I think we're the first people bringing it up, or maybe not the very first people, but we're part of the grassroots effort to make sure that Jeremiah Love gets some attention that he deserves. I think we should push the recruiting to next week and see exactly what might happen also in the transfer portal if Notre Dame gets anybody incoming as well. I think that might
I'll say now, I can't, you can't say a whole lot, but don't be shocked if there's some turnover in the running backs room and there's some turnover at some positions where you're like, whoa. There are some things that are in there, and everything's healthy and everything's good. Jadarian Price and Jeremiah Love are coming back, and everything is, I mean, I can't, we were talking about this pre-show. It was like Jadarian Price on I don't know, maybe I can't think of a whole lot of Notre Dame rosters, maybe, Audric Estime's season, and maybe, I don't know if he could, Dexter Williams coming back, that 2018 year was pretty magical, but they're on a ton of times. Would you rather have Jadarian Price or CJ Procise? Would you rather have Jadarian Price or Josh Adams? And it's Jadarian Price is probably a better running back than all of these guys. Jadarian Price in his own right is a starter at maybe all but 20 or 25 college football programs in America. He is extremely talented and a wonderful running back, and he's RB2. And Notre Dame has an embarrassment of riches at the running back position. And don't get too down if transfer portal news comes and stuff happens. But it's Notre Dame's in a good spot.
I certainly agree. Do you have a movie or a book recommendation?
So I thought about this, and I was like, well, I did a book with the first one with Dungeon Crawler Carl, and I'll stop doing the recaps for it. But I wanted to get everybody to listen to the song "Settling" by Ripe, because it's amazing. And then last week I said Colorado Space is a horror movie. This one, have you seen? I wanted to get a 2-for-1 because I love Robert Kirkman. But have you seen the Amazon original series Invincible.
I've seen the first season.
The next seasons are even better.
Yeah, I need to see season 2 and 3.
Yeah,
I waited so long.
They had a huge gap. They had a
Yeah.
giant gap to get production. I think the writer's strike might have clipped it too. Like if you don't know what it is, so the guy that wrote the comic of Walking Dead wrote another comic, the same thing, that was like a deconstruction of like basically superheroes and Superman, and they have a extremely pretty faithful adaptation on Amazon. It's got a massive budget. It's animated, so if you're checking out and it's like for kids, no, don't check out. It is absurdly violent and gory. There's curse words. The soundtrack's fantastic. Starring Stephen Yeun, who's from Nope, but also Glenn from Walking Dead. Seth Rogen's in it. Zachary Quino's in it. J.K. Simmons plays Stephen Yeun's
Omni-Man.
dad.
Yeah.
Walton Goggins is in it. He's America's sweetheart. Sandra Oh plays his mom. Marshala Ali's in it. The cast list, Sterling K. Brown's in it. Just the cast list. If you look at the cast list for this show and the amount of money that they pump into it, it is absolutely ridiculous. John Hamm's in it. The cast is insane. The acting's phenomenal. The violence is over the top. The gore, it's got all of the tropes of superheroes, and it hits them all just like right on the head. Very, very, very highly recommended. Everybody should watch the show Invincible, even if you have some hangups on animated stuff. Like it's America's best swing at an animated show of a mature theme. Like they put the money and they put the talent behind it, and man, does it pay off.
Yeah, I've only seen the first season, but the end of the first episode has an amazing.
Oh yeah,
just like now we're going. I don't want to call it a twist, but I guess it kind of is a twist. I don't want to spoil it.
It is a twist.
Yeah.
I mean, definitely. And it plays out a little differently than it did in the comics, but it's still very good. But yeah, everybody. I mean, you've probably seen the memes like 100 times, right? Of like the Omni-Man talking to Invincible as he's like, "Look at them. With even a fraction, look what they can do with a fraction of a power," or like, where he's like got them all bloodied and beaten up. It's just the memes are everywhere for it. The show's phenomenal. If you haven't seen it, you have to. You got to get on it. It's on Amazon. You probably have Prime anyway, so yeah.
That I actually will definitely be watching seasons 2 and 3. So today we said goodbye to Steve Angeli as he potentially goes to Syracuse. We started the grassroots effort for Jeremiah Love for the Heisman, and we talked just a lot about the general state of college football and the transfer portal. So I think it was a good show.
Yeah, I think we got through it, man.
Yeah. Well, this has been Notre Dame on the Voice of College Football. I'm your host, Patrick Brevity. That's Brendan McAlinden. We'll see you guys next time.